Hey guys, Dr. Israel here for Renaissance Periodization, and today we're going to talk about the myth of lean gains. Wait, I thought lean gains were possible. Well, hold the phone for a second. So let's figure out what's going on. So here's the myth, basically as it's sort of stated in popular literature, YouTube videos, the claims of various other sort of experts or gurus in the field. So the claim is that it's possible to gain muscle without gaining an appreciable amount of fat at the same time is key, or that it's possible, even in a more extreme sense, to gain muscle while losing fat. All right? And I think these situations are highly unlikely, and we'll talk about in a second why that's the case. So here's the reality of muscle gain. The best weapon we have as bodybuilders or powerlifters or people trying to get more muscular for muscle gain is a hypercaloric diet. And we actually, I guess we covered this in the Nutritional Priorities video series. A hypercaloric diet is the most powerful weapon for muscle gain. That means eating more calories than you burn, which will result in weight gain. There's a constant nutrient influx, which always provides anabolic nutrients from a hypercaloric diet. There are hormonal effects. Testosterone levels are enhanced and maintained when you're eating plenty of food, and insulin levels are kept higher than they would be, and insulin and testosterone are two very anabolic hormones. That is, if you don't do a hypercaloric diet, you miss out on those two hormonal advantages. And last but not least, eating a hypercaloric diet actually enhances cellular signaling through a variety of pathways, mTOR included, that allow direct stimulation of hypertrophic gains just from eating more food. So it's the most powerful nutritional weapon we have. On the fat loss side, on the other hand, the biggest weapon of fat loss is a hypocaloric diet, eating less calories than it takes to maintain your body weight. There is a constant nutrient deficit, which is probably one of the best promoters of fat burning there is. It's actually the best, plain and simple. There aren't enough nutrients around, fat is burned to make up the difference. The hormonal effects. Insulin is relatively lower, especially if you're lowering your carbohydrates to some extent, and lower insulin levels probably lead to lower adiposity or fat storage proclivity, and they lead to more fat burning being allowed. Epinephrine and norepinephrine levels are slightly higher in a hypocaloric diet, and those are fat burning hormones. And of course, cellular signaling, particularly with the upregulation of AMP kinase and other such signaling molecules, hypocaloric diets directly via cell signaling lead to fat loss. All right? So trying to gain muscle while losing fat at the same time is essentially taking out our two biggest weapons for both muscle gain and fat loss. It's probably not that great of an idea because of this fact. It really stacks the deck against both processes. Trying to do them at the same time makes both of them needlessly more difficult because you're taking away the two best weapons. And both processes are already difficult. I don't know anyone who has an easy time with muscle gain and fat loss. All right, it's always at least a bit of a challenge, even for the gifted. Why stack the deck even further? There are some further problems with trying to do both at the same time, muscle gain and fat loss. Cardio, great for fat loss, but it directly and indirectly interferes with muscle growth. Adding cardio to a program has like a sort of concurrent training effect where it downregulates hypertrophy, and also energy expenditure needs to be overcome, and also time you could be spent recovering is time spent doing cardio and incurring further stressors on the body. Fat burners, whoops, skip that one. Fat burners are great for fat loss, are relatively effective, but they also impair appetite. So even more of our weapons to build muscle and burn fat seem to contradict each other. Here are some more sort of basic facts, and taking all of this into account. Muscle is much harder to gain than it is to maintain. This has been established for a very long time. There's some good evidence for it in the literature, but it's especially established in actual bodybuilding and powerlifting circles. You can retain muscle relatively easily once you've gained it, but gaining it is a really tough process. And fat is relatively easy to lose compared to muscle is to gain. You can lose 20 pounds of fat in 3 months, no problem, and most people wouldn't even lose a whole lot of muscle, maybe less than 5 pounds. But try to gain 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months, you quickly realize that it is almost hopeless endeavor. So, and this of course is within reason. If you try to lose 20 pounds of fat in 1 month, you're going to be in for a lot of muscle loss and probably not that much fat loss too. But if you are doing it slowly and steadily in a controlled manner, fat gain is much more straightforward and easier than, fat loss is much more straightforward and easier, it can be more routinely accomplished and quicker than muscle gain itself. So the direction in which this is sort of pointing us is towards a structure. You should probably gain muscle and some fat using the best weapon, which is a hypercaloric diet. Then, my God, this is going really well. Then you reset your set point, okay? So you hold whatever new body weight you've achieved, and you hold it steady to sort of allow the body to acclimate to that new body weight. Once you've done that, you lose fat slowly over the course of several months using the best weapon, which is a hypocaloric diet, not being done at the same time. And then you're back down to the same body fat percentage you used to be, or the same body fat amount, but now you have more muscle because you've kept all that muscle. And then you repeat the process, and you do so continuously until you achieve the muscularity you've desired, so long as it's within genetic, etc. limitations. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to the general rule that it's pretty much impossible or incredibly difficult to gain muscle while losing fat at the same time. And here they are. If you're new to training, you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Absolutely, it's a totally new stimulus. You can absolutely get away with it for the first couple of months for sure, and maybe even the first couple of years to some extent. If you're new to scientific dieting, if you've been eating like total crap and under-eating protein and calories, and all of a sudden you start eating a decent amount of calories, you get your macronutrients right, you get your timing right, food composition, all that stuff, you can actually gain some muscle and lose fat at the same time. Absolutely. And last but not least, drugs. If you start taking powerful drugs, including anabolic steroids, then it's absolutely possible to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Or if you've been taking anabolic steroids relatively routinely and you're quite used to them, you can take a little bit more risk or a lot more risk and take much harsher substances for much longer periods and also experience that same effect of losing fat while gaining muscle. But most normal circumstances don't really involve this. So these are also tricks you can only really expire one time. For most of people's training lifespan, it's not a good idea to assume that muscle loss and fat building are processes that go together, because most of the time they really don't. So some real world tips. Massing, leading into stabilizing, leading into cutting, is practiced by virtually all large bodybuilders. It's almost sort of the gold standard of how to do things. And there's probably a pretty good reason for that, because it works. Now, normally I wouldn't say anything like this. The statement here is, who cares what some 165-pound rip guy says? A lot of people on YouTube seem to fit that description that say that, oh, you can do lean gains, bro. Well, if you weigh 165, you can get away with all kinds of stuff and think it works. But it turns out that you probably haven't pushed your physiological limits far enough to really test the scientific reality. And the scientific underpinning here is quite clear. So it's not just, oh yeah, I'm jacked and I weigh a lot and I can say whatever. There is actual science behind this. So now that we've taken care of the science, we can get personal and say, if you're really small and you think you can gain muscle and fat at the same time, and here's where the last point comes in, prove it. Skeptical of all this sciencey stuff and all this sort of big dude talk? Try going for lean gains. Try putting on a bunch of muscle within a normal period of time, not taking 50 years to do it, and simultaneously burning fat. Good luck. There are no refunds offered in this game. So to sum it all up, the scientific position is quite clear. It's probably a very good idea to do distinct, moderated, not crazy, not out of this world, not 50-pound swings, but distinct sort of sections of massing, probably a stability phase, dieting down the extra fat that you gained, and repeating the process. That's how a lot of people have been doing it for a very long time, and it turns out the literature and science and the general theory regarding the subject probably support this point. All right, let the controversy begin. See you guys next time.